explain why my dad, and I don't know, to a lesser extent my mom, when she was still alive, didn't like pets. So, before we were born, my parents were very different for their generation. They got married and didn't have a kid until 9 years after they were married, because they were, as my dad put it, having too much fun. More people do it now. They wait to have children, whatever. But they decided, before we get kids, let's get a couple of dogs to just see what it's like. And my dad had a dog growing up. So I was like, yeah, sure. So they got a couple of Irish setters. Everything's going pretty well. And then the dogs get big enough and they have to take their heartworm medicine. And the dogs did not like their heartworm medicine. At first they put it in their food bowl and they wouldn't eat it. They're like, oh, well, maybe it tastes funny. So they tried wrapping it in peanut butter, like putting peanut butter on it. And they'd spit it back into the bowl. And then they're like, all right, let's just wrap it in bacon. It's kind of a waste of bacon, but I want the dogs to be healthy and live. They would eat the bacon and spit out the peel. And they tried other ways. This is before the internet, keep in mind, so they just kind of took suggestions from people they knew about what to do. There was no dog whisperer back then. And they tried different things, and they finally were like, you know what? They just stuck it in their mouth and massaged their throats, which is going above and beyond, at least as far as my dad saw, and they spit it out. My dad just he finally said, at that point, I said, all right, they can just die. If they're not going to take their heartworm pill, there's nothing we can do. They even tried going to the vet, and the vet had nothing. So that kind of soured my dad on animals, just because those pets were just such a pain in the ass. And the way he looks at things, I've said before, you do it once, it's a habit. If it happened one time, that's the end of it. He ain't trying it again. But from time to time, where we lived, what people would do, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, dropping a dog out in the country, people that got dogs they didn't want would drive out near where we lived and drop them off for some reason, because I don't know, I guess they just hope for the best for the dog. It's a shitty way to do the dog, first and foremost, and it's wrong to do that in the country anyway, because it's, what do people expect? Just that to become their problem? To me, it's tantamount to just throwing litter on the highway, except it's a living thing. But anyway, we'd have animals that would get dropped off and hang out near our house, and we'd try to adopt them. And I had a dog named Clifford that one of the Irish setters was still alive, and so they'd hang out, but she was old and she died. He didn't have anybody to hang out with. He started bothering the neighbors' cattle, so we took him to the Humane Society. Then we had a couple more dogs that came along, took them to the Humane Society. Had another dog named Rocky. Rocky ate everything, and I do mean everything. Rocky ate a Land's End order. Rocky ate fecal matter, his own. He ate a tree. He even ate the internet. I'm not making this up. He literally chewed through the cords that had our internet connection. So we had to be careful with Land's End orders. And when I say ate the order, I don't mean he busted it open and chewed stuff up. No, he ate the box. He ate the clothes. He ate it all. And he was fine. And we tried to take care of him, but at one point, we went somewhere for a couple days, and I was wondering where Rocky was, and my dad's like, oh, yeah, the dog's gone. You think you're just going to go on a trip and I'm going to take care of your dog? No. Because he got tired of dealing with the dog, because that also soured him on animals. Because Rocky ate everything. But what kind of annoyed my dad too was I had a lot of relatives that had dogs, and they would bring them to family functions. They were little dogs, dachshunds, and they would jump on you and want to be petted, and my dad didn't like that. As far as he's concerned, dogs belong outside. But it's whatever. But I think what pissed him off the most was a long time ago, we went to my uncle's house to, I don't know, for one reason or another, just to visit. And we get to the door, and he's like, he asked us to take our shoes off. He asked nicely. I think they just had the hardwood floors redone. And you go to some people's houses, they'll do that. They'll ask you to take your shoes off. Whatever. Well, it kind of offended my dad. He didn't say anything to him, but he mentioned it to relatives on both sides of the house. He's like, yeah, he made me take my shoes off before I got in the house. And one of my relatives was like, that's an insult. And it is kind of insulting. Like, basically telling you, take your dirty damn shoes off and don't walk in my precious house. But years later, my uncle had 2 dogs he brought to my grandmother's house, and the dog was rubbing his ass on the carpet. And my dad said, oh yeah, I need to take off my shoes to enter his precious house. But there's his dog rubbing its ass on the carpet. It's just okay. So, needless to say, soured my dad on dogs. My dad just hated cats. Didn't have much dealings with him, but he just was not an animal person. Is not. So if I ever got an animal or a dog, I'm not looking at my dad to take care of it. But that experience will sour you on stuff.